Okay, it is 6:02 p.m. on Thursday, September 30th, 2021. This is a Board of Selectmen interview subcommittee meeting. I am Leslie Rutan, Board of Selectmen. This open meeting of the Board of Selectmen Interview Committee is being conducted remotely, consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of June 16th, 2021, an act relative to extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency. All members of the interview committee are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. The order allows the interview committee to meet entirely remotely so long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. Members of the public who wish to view the live stream of this meeting may do so by going to Northborough Remote Meetings on YouTube via the link listed on the agenda. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting will not feature public comment. Each vote taken this evening will be conducted by roll call vote. Members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Scott Rogers.
Present.
And Leslie Rutan, present. Both of us are members of the Board of Selectmen. And the first item on our agenda is the acceptance of meeting minutes of August 11, 2021 and August 16, 2021.
So Leslie, I move we approve the minutes of the meetings on August 11th and August 16th, 2021 as submitted.
Okay, I will second that. And is there any further discussion, Scott?
No, those minutes were great.
Okay, I agree. Okay. No further discussion. All those in favor? Scott?
Aye.
And Leslie? Aye. Okay, the next item on our agenda is our interviews for various boards and committees. This evening, we are going to be interviewing for two alternate member openings on the Historic District Commission. We have Norm Corbin, the chair of that committee, joining us tonight. Bring him in. Hi, Norm. Do you want to unmute? Yep. Yes, awesome. Hi, Norm. How are you?
Very good.
Good. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you and Scott.
Wonderful. Thank you for being here. The first individual that we are interviewing for one of these alternate member openings is Tom Reardon.
Yes.
And Tom is here. Hi, Tom. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you too.
Tom.
Thank you very much for being here.
Hello.
So you're here this evening to interview for one of the alternate member openings on the Historic District Commission. So if you would like to introduce yourself and tell us about yourself and your background. And again, you know, we may see our papers here and we know your background and what you've included in your application, but the audience members don't necessarily, so feel free to go into all sorts of detail.
Okay. Well, as I indicated on my application that I'm applying to be an alternate on the Historic District Commission, and a 35-year resident of Northborough, raised my 5 children here. I'm a self-employed architect, and I'm also a licensed building inspector. I work about 10 hours a week for the town of Westboro doing plan review and inspections. I received a BA from Holy Cross in philosophy and a professional degree in architecture from the Rhode Island School of Design. I have 40 years of experience in architectural design. I'm what we call a general practitioner. I do houses, churches, restaurants, apartment buildings, corporate offices. I have done quite a bit of work in historic districts in Massachusetts, both restoring historic structures as well as new buildings in historic districts. So I'm familiar with the requirements for being respectful and at the same time doing contemporary energy efficient buildings. I've done a few historic renovations in Northborough. You may be familiar with 500 Green Street, which is the old Livermore farm. 1730s approximately. For the house, and the carriage house is 1890s.
Hmm.
I did restore and repurpose a William Ralph Emerson shingle style house in Worcester. And I'm currently working on a master plan for St. Anne Church in Southborough, which involves the renovation and restoration of their rectory, which is from the 1890s, and which is a shingle style. And also the church is a shingle style from same period of time that was damaged and then reconstructed in 1937. So I have a long history of work on historic buildings, and I'm currently involved in projects today.
I think the answer is probably obvious based on how you've described your background, but why are you interested in this particular committee?
Well, it's in response to Norm's call. He was looking for someone with an architectural background to be on the committee. I had been on the Historic District Committee back in mid-2000s. And I thought I could bring some knowledge of architectural design history to the committee. That seemed to be something that they could use. They have a strong background in the history of properties and the families that live there. I thought I could bring some knowledge of the architectural traditions in New England, specifically in Northborough. And I've been working on the side to document and write about the lineage of styles in Northborough, starting with the early 1700s. We have a wealth of 18th century properties, and I'm like to work with the committee to spread the knowledge of their value and work for their preservation.
As you can imagine, I've worked with Tom in the past. We were on the master plan, and the state recommends that the Historic District Commission have an architect on the commission, and we've used Tom in several instances already where we've asked his advice because he was on the design review committee and we didn't have the skill sets for some questions and some changes in the district. So he's already been a valuable asset for us, and his interest in history and his past experience on this commission, it just was a natural fit. And he's attended some of our video conferences just recently, and the way he looks at things from a architectural point has already been very helpful for us. It's a skill set that really will help us moving forward. So I'm glad Tom said, sure, why not?
I can't refuse Norm.
I don't think anybody does. Tom, you've been involved in some other committees in town, and I'd like you to toot your horn a little bit and talk about what you have done, which committees those have been. You talked about Historical District Commission. You could talk about Design Review Committee, White Cliffs, and the Master Plan Steering Committee, because I know you've done a lot of work on those, and I'd like you to talk about that and toot your horn.
Well, I was on the Design Review Committee for 20 years, and I think I was part of the original group, which was made up of architects, interior designers, and builders. I served on the rewrite committee for the town bylaws back in 2008, where we redid the entire bylaw that what kind of cobbled together over the years. It hadn't been touched in 20 years. It had some large gaps, like you couldn't do mixed use or multifamily, and we thought those were deficiencies. So we tried to make the zoning lines in the districts make sense, because they were cutting through a lot of properties, and we pushed the lines to the back of the property. So you didn't have all these split lots, which was a real burden for the planning board and the ZBA. We also looked at the burdens of the groundwater districts and it raises the bar for approvals and extensive reviews when we really don't use the town wells anymore. So we have this vestigial system in place that is a real burden to people who want to renovate their homes or expand or change the use. So I know the Historic District Committee doesn't really get involved with that aspect, but it does impact maybe 50% of the land area. So that's an interest of mine. And serving on the White Cliffs Committee was one of my loves because it's a very outstanding shingle style property from the 1880s. The interiors are in exquisite shape. The exterior needs some work, but Norm and I worked on that committee. So along with the consulting architects to do, they did a bitmap scanning, three-dimensional scanning of the interior and the exterior, which is a valuable resource going forward. And I know that the committee is now kind of in hiatus as we look to the next step in how to repurpose that building.
Wonderful. And anything you wanted to add about the master plan steering committee?
Well, as I said, my hope was to be able to add my knowledge and of historic design and the process for working to restore and maintain historic buildings and bring that experience to the committee.
So regarding the master plan, right now the Historic District Commission is putting together a planning document because turns out the town never had one, and it's based on the master plan. And the two people that are on the commission now will be Tom and myself, who are active in that committee. So it makes things flow easier.
Yes, that's fantastic. I'm so glad that's being done. Scott, do you have any questions you'd like to ask Tom?
Yeah, hi, Tom. I guess one would just be a measure of interest, like when you look to preserve some of these buildings and properties, what's some of the issues that you face, or what are the items that you've overcome or techniques to overcome them?
Are you asking about projects that I've worked on?
Or either project you've worked on or something that you anticipate happening here in town as well on one of our historic properties?
Well, obviously you start with an evaluation of its existing condition. You know, you have some old properties that have been maintained and preserved, others have been neglected. And some point you have to decide whether it is feasible to restore a property. I worked on Cyprian Keys golf course, the clubhouse, and we intended to preserve the old farmhouse that the Frem family had purchased from the Diocese of Worcester. And we presented drawings to the town. They said, oh, that's a great idea, et cetera, et cetera. But then we went and did a more thorough investigation, and all the timber frame was rotted out, 2 feet up on all the exterior walls. And there's no way we could have lifted this house, replaced the sills, replaced the frame, and still been considered a historic restoration, because most of the history had been eaten by termites. So we had to punt. We did preserve the large meeting room from the 20s, but the old farmhouse, we had to make the difficult decision that we could not preserve this beautiful old building because it was no longer structurally sound. So those are the kind of issues you have to face when you look at a building. What shape is it in? Is there enough of the fabric, timber frame, or the layout that is preservable, and whether the client can afford to preserve it? I mean, that unfortunately is a big factor.
I mean, that's really going to be, that's a key with us, because probably 3 times a year we get demolition requests for antique buildings. And we can put a delay on it if it makes sense. And we do need someone like Tom to help us with that, to see what makes sense in terms of the condition of the building. So it's going to be very beneficial for that skill set.
One of the real challenges I've experienced is where you have a structure that has a lot of history to the town and the people in the town, but the building is beyond repair. So you have a significant historic property that is structurally and architecturally very compromised. And that's where you have difficult discussions, how to preserve both the history and the architecture.
Mhm, mhm.
Understood. Yeah, thanks.
Norm, is there, I'm sure Tom knows exactly what this particular committee does, but is there anything you would like to add, any kind of clarification in terms of what should be expected of Tom as an alternate?
Well, the alternate shows a level of commitment that they'll attend the meetings, that they'll participate in the discussions. They do get to vote if we need to make quorum. So if we need to make quorum, then an alternate can vote. But most of the time, our discussions aren't voting. It's how do we proceed and what our next set of activities are. So the alternates can be very active in the group, and that's what I'm looking forward to.
Mhm, mhm. Tom, do you have questions of the committee or of us as far as this particular position goes?
Well, I would hope,
Sorry, yeah.
Norm would indulge me and let me go on my little tangents about my architectural pet peeves periodically.
That's why I want you on the team.
Right. So I have a strong interest in the history of the architectural styles of Northborough, the why and wherefore of the Gale Library, why it looks like it does, and also the churches, the historic churches. I recently discovered that the original St. Rose of Lima that was built in the 19th century, which burned down, is almost a replica of the church I'm working on in Southborough, St. Anne.
Interesting.
So I'm thinking that the church, the Catholic Church in the 19th century had kind of stock drawings that they used for the different small town churches. So that's one of my other outside interests that I may foist upon the committee.
Sounds like fun
Looking
discussion.
forward to it.
Good.
I also wanted to make mention of the fact that you are part of the professional affiliated with Metro West Building Officials Association and Habitat for Humanity. So you're busy, you've done a lot, and
Right.
I think that you have such a wealth of knowledge that we certainly be remiss in not having someone like you on this committee and any other committees, quite frankly. And I just want to thank you very much for all the volunteer work that you have done in town. It's people like you who have such a wonderful background, who put in so much time that enabled Northborough to do what it does.
Well, thank you for the compliments.
We really, really appreciate that very, very much. And I know you had a lot of, you put a lot of time in these committees, design review committee and so forth and so on. Wonderful work, and I know it's appreciated.
Well, thank you.
So we thank you very much.
I look forward to working with Norm for many years.
It should be fun. All right, Tom. Thank you for.
That sounds wonderful. Is there anything else, Scott, that you wanted to add, or?
No, that's great. Thank you, Tom, for all the service to the town. And I think I've had the opportunity to hear you talk about the mixing of styles in some inappropriate ways. So I learn from you every time I hear you talk. So thanks for that.
Well, thank you.
We appreciate it. We will be making appointments at our next Board of Selectmen meeting. And after that meeting, which is, I think, it's not till the end of October almost. It's like 3 weeks off still, I think. I don't remember the date exactly. But you would need, if you could get sworn in, so that if there is indeed a vote taking place at one of the meetings, that you would be able to vote if need be.
Okay.
So that would be super. So, and Norm, when do you typically meet? What is your meeting schedule?
Well, we switched our meetings because of a challenge with scheduling Zoom meetings. So we're right now through the end of the year, we are meeting the third Mondays of the month at 7 o'clock using video technology.
Okay, via Zoom. Okay,
Right.
super. Well, Tom, thank you very much for being here. We really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you for the interview.
Take care, Tom. Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Okay, good night.
Take
Good
care.
night.
Good night.
Thanks. Okay, our next applicant is for the second alternate member opening is Lorna Helms. I like the house tour.
You're muted, Lorna.
Since we don't have an opportunity to chat with the waiting room, we kind of surprise
Hi.
them since we bring them in.
Hi there.
How are you?
Thank you for the tour. We appreciate that.
We're all doing well. How are you?
I'm great. Sorry, I'm showing a vacant house, so it's kind of echoey.
Oh, okay. That's the job of a realtor, isn't it?
That's right.
Well,
Thanks for
hi,
joining us.
Lorna.
I appreciate you guys having my interview tonight. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you for being here. Leslie Rutan and Scott Rogers,
Hi, Lorna.
Board of Selectmen. Thank you very much for being here. Sorry, we're running a few minutes late.
That's okay.
Okay, so if you could introduce yourself, tell us about your background and why you are applying for this particular position.
So let's see. Lorna Helms. I've lived in town since 1998, which is the longest I've ever lived anywhere. So I really consider Northborough my home. I've been on various committees in the town, from community affairs when I first got to town, and probably the most recent was the 250th anniversary. So I just love Northborough, and I also clearly love homes because that's what I do for work. So when Norm talked to me about this, the thought of I learned so much about the history by doing the 250. So when he asked me about joining this, I thought, well, that's perfect because that's right up my alley.
Wonderful. Tell us a little bit more about your background because people in the audience don't have your application in front of them. So is there anything else that you just want to point out about yourself?
Let's see. I've lived in Northborough. I'm a realtor. I have 2 children. I am a member at Trinity Church. I don't know. It's hard to talk about yourself.
Early childhood education, I see that you noted here.
Yes, my degree is in early childhood education. Went to North Adams State. Gosh, a long time ago at this point. And again, just living in New England, I think that for me, that's a big piece of the history, right? Because we just live in such a historic area. So I feel really lucky about that.
Absolutely.
So, Lorna, how long have you been working in the real estate industry?
For 28 years.
Wow.
Yes, I know. That I started when I was 5. That just so we're all clear.
I was going to say that. That's great.
So
Yeah.
the reason I approached Lorna is I worked with her on the 250th committee, and she was a pleasure to work with. And she certainly liked learning about the history of the town. And the state really highly recommends that the Historic District Commission have a realtor or someone in the real estate industry on it, because a lot of what we're doing is dealing with houses, either restoration or preservation, and having someone with that skill set on the team is going to be real helpful going forward. It's just it's a missing link that we didn't have, and now if Lorna joins us, it fills in that gap.
Is there anything else you could add, Norm, about what your committee does and what might be expected of Lorna in a meeting?
Yeah, she's been copied on our meeting minutes and the like, and she showed up for one of the meetings by video. Mostly right now, for Lorna, what we're doing is putting together a preservation plan for the city, a historic preservation plan for the town of Northborough. And once we pull that together, then I think we're going to be able to prioritize what our next steps are. We've been doing quite a bit of work, certainly for the last years, but it hasn't really been organized. Like a plan would help it organize, because we have a plan, but it's not on paper. So I think the thing that's going to come up in the next through the rest of the year is primarily have people like Norm do the plan, edit it, make changes, ask questions, and things like that. That's really the hot topic for the next 3 months for us.
Okay. And Lorna, Norm was saying earlier that currently the meeting schedule is the 3rd Monday of the month at 7 o'clock. currently via Zoom. Does that work for you as far as your schedule?
The third Monday?
Yes.
Yes, it does.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, I have meetings on Tuesdays, but not on Mondays.
Okay. Okay. Do you have any questions of Norm in terms of what might be expected of you?
I actually talked to him at length before I applied. So we had done, a phone call as well as some emails. So I feel like I have a pretty good sense of it. One of the other things that I'll add on is that as part of my real estate, I actually teach. I'm certified with the state to teach. And one of the classes that I do teach is architecture, where we talk about the different styles of homes and a little bit of the history on them. So I'm familiar with, I wouldn't say I'm an expert, but I'm definitely familiar with that because I've been teaching it for about 4 years. So that is definitely something I feel like I can bring to the table in terms of the historic value of different styles and things like that.
Wonderful. That's great. What a great background.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
It's hard to talk about yourself, but I thought of that when Norm was talking. It's like, oh, I forgot to tell them that.
Good.
I think I put that on the application.
It's important. I think that's great. Scott, do you have any other questions?
Yeah, hi, Lorna. Just an opportunity if you've been involved, even if it's not in one of the historical-based boards or committees, other town boards or events that you've been involved with beyond the 250 celebration?
Yeah, so I was a member of the Community Affairs Committee when I first moved to town back in like 1999. I did that for a couple of years, which at that point we were running Applefest, so I did help with Applefest with that. I was heavily involved in the PTO at the school when my kids went to Lincoln Street. So from running book club for 5 years to helping with Fun Day every year and all of those things. I'm currently a Lions member. I'm actually King Lion, and I am also a junior women's in the Junior Women's Club.
Nice, thanks.
Wonderful. Yeah. Well, you're in
a lot. That's
a lot of stuff. That's great. That's great. Nora, is there anything else you'd like to add?
No, I'm just looking forward to having Lorna on the team so that we get her view on her perspective on what we're trying to do. It's going to be real helpful for us.
Yes. Yes. Well, Norm, I have to say you have a good eye.
Thank you.
You're taking some great people. I think it's great that you've reached out like that. And Lorna has a great background as well as does Tom. And I think it's that these two would be wonderful additions. So we appreciate it very much. Lorna, we'll be making appointments at our next Board of Selectmen's meeting later in October.
Okay.
So after that time, after officially appointed, we would ask that you get sworn in so that in the event of a vote and they need the alternate to vote, that you're able to do that. So you need to conflict for that. So.
All right. Well, Diane, just send me an email letting me know, like, yes, you're official and all of that. Awesome. And if there's any other questions, please don't hesitate to reach out.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your time. Sorry we ran late, but we really appreciate your time and wanting to volunteer. Thank you.
Thanks,
no worries. Thank you. Nice to see you all.
Nice to see you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Take care. Okay. Super. Norm.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Two great people here.
Yeah, we're going to be very fortunate to have these two additions to our team for sure.
I think so too. Great backgrounds too. I mean, I think so many people have things to offer, but I think in this particular situation, it's really apropos for your committee in particular. So thank you very much. And thank you for taking the time to meet with us tonight.
All right. Well, have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you, Norm.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Thanks a lot, Norm. Take care.
You bet. Bye-bye.
Bye. Okay. Now we're on to the Scholarship Committee. And we have two openings there. We're running a little bit behind. We're about 10 minutes behind or so. It's 6:32. Our first applicant for one of the two openings on the Scholarship Committee is Vikram Verma. If we could bring him in.
It looks like we've got James and Carrie from the committee as well.
Oh, James too. Okay.
Great. Everybody's connecting.
Okay.
Hi, Scott and Leslie.
Hi, Vikram. How are you?
And Jim.
Good to see you. Hi, Carrie.
Hi, how's everybody tonight?
Very
Doing
good.
well, thanks.
Great.
For Thursday, we don't usually interview on Thursdays. Kind of nice. The end of the week has a little different flavor to it.
Yeah, it's nice, right?
Yes, it is. It is. And James is here as well.
Yes, how are you?
How are you? And James, could you pronounce your last name for me, please?
Kehongi.
Kehangi. Okay, wonderful. So James, are you the chair of the scholarship committee?
No, I'm not. I think Bob D'Amico was the chair,
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, okay, okay,
but I think he couldn't make it today.
okay. That's
I have been on the committee for, I can't remember, for a long time, probably 10 years, I think.
Oh
I
my
don't know.
God. Yes, okay. And that's perfectly fine. I just wasn't sure who was chair at this point.
Yep.
So James, thank you for being here. And Carrie, you're also on the scholarship committee. Thank you very much for being here. We appreciate it. Okay, Vikram, welcome. Thank you very much. Sorry that we're running late tonight. Sorry about that. If you could introduce yourself and tell us about yourself, provide some background. Again, once again, audience doesn't have the advantage of the application like Scott and I do. So if you could describe your background and explain why you would like to be on this particular committee.
So I'm Vikram Verma. I live in the Indian Meadows area of Northborough, and it has been some time I have been trying to volunteer for the town. My kids are all grown up and gone, so I have some extra time, and I want to purpose that for volunteering activity with the town. I ran for election for Selectmen earlier to do the same thing. That didn't work out. Before that, I applied for another diversity committee, which didn't work out. And then, so I have been trying to be available to the town for some volunteering work. And that's my only purpose of being in this, wanting to be in this committee.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful. Could you provide some of your background? What do you do and what is your background?
I'm in the medical device industry. I help companies to get regulatory approvals from the US FDA and other countries' regulatory bodies for medical devices. And before that, I had been so I've been doing that for over 2 decades now, and I have a master's in molecular biology and then an MBA, and along the way I got into regulatory, and that's what I do.
Wonderful. So that you are a Regulatory Affairs Professional Society member.
Yes. Yeah.
Wonderful. That's fantastic. So you're interested in applying because you would like to volunteer for the town of Northborough and provide your expertise and so forth. Scott, do you have any questions of Vikram?
Yeah, I guess opportunity also, Vikram, to talk a little bit about interactions with the school system and perspective of your own kids as students and looking to go to college and looking for scholarships and that kind of intersection between your own experience in this committee.
Yes, but my kids went to Algonquin. They studied there, and son went through the school system, and daughter did as well. And they, I don't think they applied to any of the committee scholarships, but they got other scholarships, and it was writing an essay. Involved all those things, writing an essay, submitting your resume, applying for why you are the best candidate for this. So I have seen how they have applied and what they have been through during not just not the town itself, but other places, other committees for scholarships.
James and Carrie, could you give us some information about your committee, when you meet, how often you meet, and what you typically accomplish in a meeting, or what might be expected of Vikram?
So this is James. I've been on the committee for a long time. We usually meet every. I think it's every. We try, but it's not always possible to meet every month. We don't do that. Most of the time, we meet every quarter. And when we do meet, can you hear me, Leslie?
Oh, yeah, it's very, very choppy.
Right now, how is that?
That's better. I think I heard you say that you typically would meet in a monthly, but it's been quarterly lately.
Yes.
Okay.
We've had trouble with quorum. Some of the older, not older, but some of the people who've been there for a long time have moved on because of various things. So that has been a problem. Quorum has been a problem. Really, what we try to achieve the several years I've been there, and what we have achieved most is basically give scholarships to some of the needy and folks or kids from Algonquin mainly. We've been able to raise money, and one of the biggest activities that we've held is through the Apple Fest. We used to run a bouncy. Can you hear me? It seems to be struggling.
Oh boy, this is hard to understand. Actually, I don't know. Scott, are you able to hear?
It just a choppy on your end, James.
Maybe
we
it's
did
my.
pick up about the Apple Fest as the biggest fundraiser for the scholarship.
Correct. So it's the biggest fundraiser for us. We run the bouncer. I will be there most of the time. I try to be there, but that's to be our biggest fundraiser. So when we're looking for new members coming in, I think we're looking for maybe different ideas of how we can raise money and give maybe more scholarship to the kids who are needy and who want the scholarships.
Mhm.
So that's really what I would say.
Okay.
Yeah. Coming back to the Apple Fest, recently I joined the Rotary Club, and I think the membership money from the Rotary Club also uses that part of that money for scholarships. So I'm not sure whether, and that's during the not during the Apple Fest itself, but they also give out scholarships to Algonquin kids.
Yes, there is a Rotary scholarship every year.
Yeah.
Yep. Mhm.
And I have been recently associated with them and being part of that
Mhm.
as well.
Yeah, that's great. That's wonderful. Carrie, is there anything to add?
No, I'm a recent addition to the committee as well. I was elected, I think maybe a year ago. It was during COVID, so within that time span. And as James mentioned, the issue has been finding a quorum. The meeting I attended, we actually couldn't vote on anything because it was just me and one other committee member. So I know that we are looking for new blood and new ideas.
Okay. Which gets me to the next question is, again, when do you meet? Because I couldn't quite understand James because of the choppiness, but I just want to make sure that Vikram is available for the time and typically when you meet.
So I can tell you what I was told when I was elected. We were originally was told every month, as James said, but it ends up being less than that. I think it was quarterly. COVID kind of affected things because, as he mentioned, the major fundraiser was Apple Fest, and then with COVID, Apple Fest obviously had a decreased presence over the last few years. James, correct me if I'm wrong on that, but that's how it was presented to me and what I've understood. Because I think at this point, there's only 3 of us in standing on the committee. So we don't have enough for a quorum at this point. So new blood is welcome.
So what day of the week do you meet and about what time when you do meet?
That would be a James question in all honesty, because we haven't met recently because we haven't had enough people. I believe we did meet on a Thursday when the last time was, but again, it was only me and one other person who showed up.
Yeah, let me know whether you can hear me. You're correct. We usually meet on Thursdays, but COVID time has messed up everything. So it's Thursdays 7 p.m. When we used to meet physically, it would be, I think, is room B or room C. Can't remember which exact one it is, but I know exactly where it is. hopefully now that we have quorum, we can actually start meeting again.
Wonderful. And Thursdays work for you, Vikram?
Yeah, they do, depending on what time the meeting
7
is.
p.m.
Yeah, 7 p.m. would work, certainly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there anything else you'd like to add, Vikram?
Just had some questions. What's the total number of scholarships that are given, and how much money is generally available for scholarships?
So I wouldn't be able to answer that. That would probably be a Bob question. Bob is not here. But over the years, we have at least every year offered scholarships to about 2 students from Algonquin. I think there was a year that we did offer a student up from Assabet. We do receive, I can tell you that because I usually go through reading most of those things. We do receive about 20 to 30 applications. Most of them all very well needy and want the scholarship. But we end up settling about 2 to 3 scholarships every year. So I'm not in the finance committee. The Kelly was, and I think he left. So I don't have the numbers in terms of the finance that I can give you, Vikram. I'm sorry.
Okay, thanks, James. What is the quorum for the meeting for any work to get done? How many people are needed?
I think so. I'm not familiar with the sort of the board requirements, but what I know is that at least we need 3 out of. I think we are required to be only 3 out of 4 to meet.
Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I think in the past too, the scholarships have tended to be either 250 or 500, I believe.
At least 500. We've since my time since I joined, we've never given less than 500.
5. Okay. Yep. Okay.
Yeah. It's always been 500 and above.
Yes. Which is fantastic.
So you give out 2 or 3 scholarships of $500 each per year or per quarter? How's that work?
Per year.
Per year.
Yeah, it's per year. Yeah.
Yeah, these are presented usually at the end of the year at the scholarship night, senior scholarship night at Algonquin, for example. So it would be there once a year, just like Rotary and other different organizations in town do theirs. This is part of that whole lineup of scholarships that the seniors can apply for.
Yeah. Okay.
So, okay, Scott, did you have anything else? Or?
No, that's great. Thank you, Vikram, for the willingness to help out with town and fill a seat and bring fresh ideas to this committee. I appreciate it.
Thank you,
Great to
Vikram.
be here, and thanks for the opportunity.
We will be making our appointments at our next Board of Selectmen meeting, which is toward the end of October. I'm sorry, I don't have the exact date. But once that's official, you would receive a letter from Diane Wackel, and at that point, you would want to get sworn in so that when votes are taken, you're able to vote as an official member.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you very much for being available and wanting to volunteer, and for running late with us. We appreciate it.
Well, that's okay. I was working anyway.
Okay.
For some time.
Right, okay. Thank you very much, and thank you, Carrie and James. I'll stay on, though. We have another applicant for the second opening.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vikram.
Take care.
Vikram.
Thanks, James and Carrie and Scott and Leslie.
Thank you. Take care.
Hey, Leslie, that selectmen's meeting's on the 18th of October.
Keep forgetting. 18.
I had to look it up because we would have been on the 11th, but the holiday moves into the 18th.
Right. That's why I'm okay. Right. So it's October 18th. Okay. October 18th. Super. Okay. Our next applicant is Liz Nolan. Hi, Liz.
Hi, how are you guys?
Good. How are you?
Doing well.
Oh, good. Sorry we're running late here. In fact, I'm hoping we'll be done in time so people can go to the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion listening meeting tonight, listening session. So
Right.
hopefully
A
this
little competition.
Exactly. Yeah, there are a few things going on tonight, but sorry we're running late. Thank you very much for being here. As you know, I'm Leslie Rutan. This is Scott Rogers, also Board of Selectmen. And we have James Kihungi here from the Scholarship Committee, as well as Carrie Genova, to answer questions and provide information as far as what that committee does.
Sure.
So first of all, Liz, if you could introduce yourself and provide some background about yourself, because we have the applications and we can read all these things, but the audience doesn't. So feel free to talk about yourself.
Sure. So I have lived in Northborough for 16 years. My husband and I moved here due to his job way back when. Currently have 2 boys, ages 19 and 17. So we were familiar with the schools and you know, the whole high school and the process of all that. Most of my background has been in writing and publicity, but since moving here, definitely got involved through the kids, mostly through whether it was a PTO or Cub Scouts, and then it just moved into in Northborough Helping Hands. I've worked on fundraising a lot for them, especially for the backpack drive. Also, we've done, you know, Northborough Education Foundation and the Northborough Southborough Special Education Parent Advisory Council. So a lot of it, you know, I'm used to volunteering time and being flexible with, you know, meetings and hours, and, you know, feel like networking is key for, you know, making sure everybody understands what your group is about, and especially when it's fundraising, you know, publicity and bringing awareness to it is key. I also, you know, in my prior life was in human resources. So, you know, as far as the whole confidentiality aspect of what this, you know, group would require, that is not a problem. I also founded Northborough Moms when I moved here, and that now has like 1,300 women on it. And we do a lot of projects within the community. If, you know, it's not only just a resource, but we do try to get involved in service projects. And you know, it's a generous town in general. So it's just, I've been kind of immersed in different things throughout the town for many years.
Right. What do you, first of all, why are you interested in this particular position, and which of the attributes that you just described you feel lends itself best to this committee?
So I have stepped back from some of the other commitments that I had, or outgrown them because of the kids' ages or, you know, interests. I feel I've always wanted to get involved in something with the town, but I wasn't ready for a huge time commitment, such as the Board of Selectmen or school committee. So I feel like this will help me still stay involved, but I think the time commitment would be less. And I feel like my background, whether it's publicity, fundraising, you know, it's a good fit.
Mm-hmm. I think that's a good point too, actually, because in listening to James talking about the Apple Fest, the fundraising being one of the main fundraisers for that, raising money for the scholarship, I think that would be a huge help. So that's wonderful. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of cut you off a little bit. Is there anything else you want to add about that, or?
No, you know, so I also do some work with, well, I still write, I don't write for the Community Advocate anymore. So I left that position in July, but, you know, I've followed a lot of the committee meetings, and I did, you know, I've watched the last scholarship committee meeting, and I realized I didn't have a quorum. So I know they needed the people, and Carrie's shaking her head. So I just wanted to, it's an important committee. And I don't like to see committees go without people. So I thought, you know, why not? And it's like a good fit. I also do work with Wuya Burgers, and I help facilitate not only community outreach, but also fundraisers that organizations have. So I have my fingers in a lot of that, similar things that could apply to this.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Super. James or Carrie, is there anything you would like to add as far as what the committee does and what would be expected of Liz, and what the time commitment would be, and when you meet and so forth?
Carrie, do you want to go? Or you want me to go?
You can go because you've been on it longer.
So Liz, welcome. Thank you so much for your interest in volunteering for this one. I've been here for about, I want to say, I think 10 years or longer. The beauty with it is that we raise money to give scholarships to needy students in Northborough, right? It's all goes to Algonquin. I think there's only one time we've given a kid in Assabet, but the kid happens to be from Northborough, so it's all Northborough based. Again, as Leslie said, we raise most of our fundraising is through the Apple Fest. That's where we see most fundraising. We usually have a bouncy. We man it ourselves. I actually volunteer my own generator most of the times, but it's fun. But I think when you're talking about being involved in some of the communities, I think networking, we need a lot of networking. So that's, I think, that will help us a lot in terms of networking. That's something we definitely need to expand ways of how to raise more money.
Sure.
Okay, and what is the time commitment generally? If you have a the proper number of people on the committee, you have a quorum, how often do you expect to meet? Approximately how long are the meetings and when do you meet?
Yep. So I am not the chair, so let me put that up front. But our expectation is we meet every month, usually on Thursdays at 7 p.m. They're usually short meetings in general. They're not that long. Recently, we've been meeting quarterly because of lack of quorum. And as you know, when COVID hit, we pretty much stopped because some of the members have left. Some of them, I know I think they are no longer there in terms of being in Northborough. They may be in other towns. But we really would love to restart it and get it going because we've seen the smiles from kids when you give them those scholarships.
So I did reach out to Bob prior to me, sending in my application for this. So he did give me some of this background. So I kind of knew what I was getting into. But because I know you said that you do most of your fundraising at Apple Fest, and that didn't, you didn't do that this year, I'm guessing. So do you plan on giving a scholarship to the class of 2022?
We don't have a quorum, so we haven't met to make those decisions.
Okay.
So when we have a quorum, we probably will meet and figure out how much money we have. I don't even know how much money we have. I'm not the treasurer, so the treasurer will probably tell us how much money we have, and then we can decide whether we will.
Okay.
Okay.
I just have a couple other questions. As far as how many scholarships do you normally give out and the amount that they usually are?
Typically, we usually give at least 2. That's what I've seen so far since I've been on the committee, and an average at least of $500 for each scholarship. Yeah.
Okay. So is that typically your goal of fundraising? Is like $1,500 or $2,000, or from year to year? Or?
When I joined, I can tell you from my perspective, when I joined, I put in the goal to be about 5,000. I thought we could raise $5,000 easily in Northborough. Right. We've not been able to do that. There are other channels I think we can utilize to raise money, but we've treaded water, right? And we need just to get out of that treading water and get going.
Right. I mean, to be honest, I didn't know this committee even existed. It's not publicized well. Maybe students realize that you give out a scholarship because they're going through the guidance, but as a resident, I was never aware until I started looking into it. So I think awareness is key.
I guess in that light too, in the absence of Apple Fest, do you envision maybe doing another fundraiser this year? Now that it's October, it's actually early enough to maybe do that prior to the senior scholarship night at the end of the year type of thing. Is that something you would envision doing maybe, James or Carrie?
So I have several ideas that I would like to discuss when we meet, when we have a quorum, right? I think one of the other ways that we raise our money is through the exercise tax forms. Like people can put in a dollar for scholarship. We haven't raised, we haven't put that as something that we can tell people about and the benefits of doing it. So I would want to do something about that because I think $1 out of several people will raise good amount of money. Even if it's 1,000, 2,000, if 2,000 people did it, we have 2,000 right there. We usually get a few people. I think maybe 50 or 20 people usually do it, so we want to increase that. So that's one. And then I was also thinking we should be able to do an independent fundraiser without the Apple Fest. But I want to discuss those with other members who come in and figure out whether we can actually be able to execute it.
Right.
We have the capability.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
I know Bob had mentioned that there's a check mark on, the excise tax bills and everything, but to be honest, I never have noticed it. So I'm guessing a lot of people don't even realize that it's there.
Yeah, I want to bring it to attention of people as much as possible. I think I would like to bring it to a lot of people, and I think people would put the $1.
Yes, and we have a tax bill actually that's due on November 1st. Right here. And I know that the other part of that has the checkoff where you can add, and also I think it's the Elderly and Disabled Taxation Fund Committee. That's the other. I think it's those two things that you can donate to. But just throwing something out there, because you need to have a kind of some sort of cute, quick campaign to say, hey, residents, this is on there if you feel like you want to, contribute. But anyway, that's for your committee to discuss. But in the absence of Apple Fest, it kind of makes you wonder, maybe there's some things that could be done, because those are great scholarships for the town to be able to hand out every year. Okay, so unless there's something else, Scott, did you have anything you wanted to add?
No, that's great. I think, Liz, you bring your fundraising and networking expertise to be a great help to this committee.
Thank you. I have one other question, because my younger son is a junior in high school. I have, as far as a conflict of interest, obviously Northborough is a small town. When you're reviewing application, is that something to consider or not? I mean, I can totally be objective, but that obviously the applicants.
Yeah, so wouldn't preclude you from being a member of the committee. What you just want to make sure is that at the time that your own student is of age and would be a possible scholarship recipient, then you want to weigh whether you'd even request a scholarship or not. But your ability to review scholarship applicants would be fine.
Okay.
I believe that because I was on this committee, I took part in this committee a few years ago, and I believe that names were hidden, so that as different kids' applications were being reviewed, nobody knew who it was. So there is the possibility of doing that. So let's say you would know who it is based on the information that's on there, but it should not preclude you from being on the committee or your child from applying.
So the process that we utilize is usually Bob will pick them up. Bob happens to be one of the people who might know most of all the kids in town. So he'll pick them out and he will what is the word, that make them dark, like make all the names and anything that is identifiable, including addresses, completely blacked out. So all you're seeing is just the content of what the person is writing.
Right.
So you read those and you make a decision based on the content, not the names or addresses.
Exactly.
So I have helped the Algonquin PTO review some of their scholarships each year for the past, I think it's got 3 or 4 years, maybe. So they do something similar.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, they do.
I mean, sometimes being in Northborough for a long time, sometimes a kid will be talking about working at, let's say, BJ's, and you shop in BJ's every 2 hours, and you're like, I know that kid.
Right. Right.
Yeah, but it's rare. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's hard. Yeah, I did that too with the PTOs. I remember that, everything being blacked out. So nothing should preclude either
Okay, great.
being on it or your son applying. So
Super.
okay, so we will be making appointments at our next Board of Selectmen meeting on October 18th. And once that is official, in terms of who we appoint for both the Historic District Commission, the 2 alternate member openings, and the Scholarship Committee 2 openings, you would receive a letter from Diane Wackel, and after that point, you would need to go to Andy Dowd and get sworn in.
Okay.
You can vote on things that need to be voted on. So thank you very much for being here.
Sure, no problem. Thank you.
And thank you for running late with us, but I think we covered everything.
Not a problem.
Okay.
Nice to meet you, Carrie and James, too.
Thank you. Looking forward.
Thanks.
Thanks
Bye.
so much for volunteering. Take care.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So Leslie, we are good to go? We can leave, right?
Yes, because there's really nothing, unless there is some particular reason you would like to discuss either of these applicants. We've got 2 people for 2 openings. And
Right.
something that I would like to say, that I would say at every meeting, is let's say if we have 2 openings and 2 people, we don't necessarily appoint them just because we need 2 people. You know, if we felt there was something that would preclude that person from being on the committee, we don't appoint them. But short of that, is there any reason to think that either Liz or Vikram would not be a good fit for this committee?
Personally, I think Liz is a great candidate. I think she brings in a lot of things that we need, that energy that we need in the committee to raise more money. So that's a good addition, I think.
And I believe Vikram brings a lot of great energy. He obviously really would like to volunteer, and just has a good way about him and way he deals with people and so forth. So I think he also would be an asset.
Excellent.
I agree. I liked them both, and I think they both bring different strengths to it. And again, I'm looking forward to having a full quorum, because since I've been elected, we haven't been able to, as James said, do anything because we haven't had enough. So I think they're bringing great energy. I think they're bringing great ideas, and 2 for 2 sounds great to me.
Okay, awesome.
I think it gives you an opportunity to increase the fundraising and get some scholarships out there.
Absolutely.
So that'll be good.
Correct. Yeah. That's good.
Yep.
Wonderful. Okay, well, I think we probably have deliberated. So Carrie and James, thank you very much for being here. We very much appreciate staying on. with
Thank
us.
you for your time and working on the committee.
Right.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a wonderful night.
Thank you too. Take care.
Bye.
So Leslie, if we just want to pivot into deliberation and then start in reverse order, just because we're coming fresh off the scholarship committee, I think we've said it. No reservations about seeing Vikram and Liz join the committee. I think they, obviously the committee needs it, and I think they've got both perspectives that would help the committee do their work.
I agree. No, I think that'd be super. Would you like to make a motion?
Yeah, so often we have the details around specific seats and their expiration dates. In this case, we don't. So we'll make a motion in terms of recommending the appointment, and then if any of those details come to light as Diane goes to align them with specific seats on the committee, then there might be expiration dates or terms, specifics around their terms. Okay. So for us tonight, we'll make the simple recommendation. So along those lines, I move we vote to recommend both Vikram Verma and Liz Nolan to the scholarship committee.
Okay, and I second that. Is there any further discussion?
No, ma'am.
Oh, okay. All those in favor?
That's a roll call vote. Scott Rogers says hi. Aye. Says hi too. It says hi.
Leslie says aye. Okay, that sounds great. That will bring that forward to our next Board of Selectmen meeting, and on to the Historic District Commission.
Yeah, similarly, right? We've got 2 great applicants. Norm has had talked with them and engaged their enthusiasm. They come in, wanting to do this work. Someone like Tom that has been involved in all things historical and design wise for decades in some cases is a phenomenal addition. And then Lorna, brings fresh enthusiasm on the heels of the 250th celebration, and she got the bug there, and I think she'll provide similar energy and insight, helping that committee out. So, in both those cases, no reservations at all.
Okay. Yep. I agree, and I just think again, I know I said this when Norm was on the call, though, that he really has a good eye. I think he has so much pride, takes so much pride in that committee. and has really sought out people who very obviously have a lot to add and would really round out that committee very nicely. So I want to applaud him for that.
Yeah.
I think that's super. So I want to thank Tom and Lorna very much for that. So do we have a motion?
Yes, I move we vote to recommend both Tom Reardon and Lorna Helms to the Historic District Commission.
Okay, the 2 alternate member openings.
Yeah, in the 2 alternate member openings.
Okay, I second that. Is there any further discussion? Okay, roll call vote. All those in favor? Scott?
Scott is aye.
Leslie, aye. Wonderful. Okay, I want to thank all these individuals for meeting with us and running a little bit late, but it's always good to chat, learn more about these people. So thank you very much. And we'll hopefully bring these people into formal positions later this
Hopefully, if all goes well, we'll do that business on the 18th of October.
Right. Awesome. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Scott. Thank you, Jim, for running the meeting. We appreciate it.
Yeah, Jim, thanks for all your work.